Good afternoon, y'all. This is Ned over at myphilippinedreams.com. I am running solo today as Michelle is running her after-school program. Ate Shell's after-school program right now behind us. I just want to do a short introduction video to some research that I've been doing and some articles I've been doing over at the website over at myphilippinedreams.com on Philippine culture. First off, a disclaimer. I am by no means an expert on Filipino culture. I've only been here a year. And I've basically been blundering through and making a lot of mistakes when it comes to interpersonal communication and understanding where Filipinos are coming from when it comes to certain things. And you'll hear a lot of foreigners complaining about certain things in the way that Filipinos do certain things and respond to certain situations. And in investigating this and in experiencing this, I started to learn about some concepts that they have here. Basically what we're going to be looking at are the concepts of Hiya and Amor Propio. Hiya is basically face. It's an experiencing shame or embarrassment due to some violation. Specifically, and more to the point, it has to do with Amor Propio. Amor Propio is basically, it comes from the Spanish, but it actually predates the Spanish. We'll be getting a little more into that at a certain stage. And it basically comes from the Spanish, and it means self-love, love of self. And it's basically comes down to a healthy ego, developing an ego, a cultivation of a positive self-esteem. There's a lot of positive things that contribute to Amor Propio, a feeling of self-worth and a feeling of self-love. But the Amor Propio can also result in some negatives. Some of the positives of Amor Propio are there's certain expectations placed upon Filipinos. When you're interacting with Filipinos, especially kids, when you first meet kids, a lot of times they'll give you mano. Basically, they're just taking their hand and they bring it to their forehead as a sign of respect. That's an aspect of Amor Propio. It's basically showing respect towards elders. It's something that's expected of all Filipinos, and it's something that's part of that concept. Also, hospitality. People are always like, oh, Filipinos are the most hospitable people in the world. Again, that comes from Amor Propio. That's an expectation that is placed upon a homeowner to welcome guests, make them feel welcome, offer them food. You'll often hear Filipinos say a lot to each other, have you eaten? Did you have lunch? Again, they're inquiring as to how you are doing, but it's also an expectation and it's something internal to them. The problem comes when Amor Propio gets violated. You embarrass or you bring shame or you put a Filipino in a bad situation. Which brings on that sense of hiya, that sense of shame or embarrassment, that loss of face. Also, keep in mind that this is something that's not unique to the Philippines. This is a concept that is very common throughout Southeast Asia, and individual countries, respective countries, have different levels of it. And what's actually kind of funny is I talk to younger Filipinos sometimes, and I ask them, I says, hey, can you tell me something about Amor Propio? And 8 times out of 10, 80% of the time, they don't know what it is. When I explain the concept to them, they're like, oh yeah. So it's, even though they're not specifically or consciously aware of it, they do know what it is. A lot of them know what Hiya is though. And when you talk to older folks, and I'd say like 35 and above, 40 and above, they all know what Amor Propio is. And they all know what Hiya is. And that led to some interesting discussions. And again, a lot of times, like a Filipino yes. A Filipino yes or a Pinoy yes can mean a wide variety of things. It can mean I don't know and I don't want to admit it. It can mean I didn't fully understand what you said because I'm having a nosebleed because my English isn't as well as I like it to be. It can mean they're unsure of themselves, that they didn't understand. And I first experienced this when I get lost and I'd ask for directions and they'd be like, oh, it's that way. And it wasn't that way. But they just didn't want to feel embarrassed or they were unsure of themselves or maybe they didn't understand. So they just said, yeah, it's over there. So again, it can lead to some misunderstandings. It can get people frustrated. Sometimes when you go into a store and you say, hey, is X, Y, or Z in stock? And they'll say, no, sir, it's out of stock. And you see it right on the shelf. You'd be like, what do you mean? It's right over there. Because they're saying it's out of stock because they didn't fully understand what you said, or they don't know if it's in stock or not, or it's close to lunch break, siesta, and they just don't want to go check. But they don't want to admit to that, violate their Amor Propio, and bring on a sense of shame or embarrassment. In the next video, we're going to get into Amor Propio and Hiya a little more in depth. But I just wanted to cite some examples of how extreme Hiya and Amor Propio can get. If you violate it, for example, there's some people that have, for example, my question to you is, what do Claire Danes, Justin Bieber, the Beatles, Terry Hatcher, and the author Dan Brown all have in common? The answer is they've all incurred the wrath of the Filipino collective consciousness when it comes to violations of Amor Propio and Hiya, bringing on shame and embarrassment through some of the statements that they made. And again, as foreigners, it's important for us to look at these examples and say, okay, so it's just not me that's experiencing this, or it's not my neighbor, it's everybody. And the more higher you are, or the more renowned you are, or the more bigger you are, the more of effect it can have. For example, Claire Danes, I believe it was back in 1998, they were filming Broke Down Palace in Manila, and she later commented on some talk show that she found that Manila was ghastly and weird and it was full of cockroaches. Well, the Manila government didn't respond to that well. They were very upset, and the city council there went on to declare her persona non grata. Persona non grata is something it's like a legal term. A city council usually votes on it to say that person is unworthy of being here. They won't actually kick you out or deport you based on being persona non grata. It's just like they should be shunned. So that was Claire Danes. The Beatles, back in 1966, they were playing a gig here. Melda Marcos, she of the many shoes, she invited them over for dinner, and due to their scheduling, they weren't able to meet with her for dinner. And the Filipinos took that as a slight. She offered her hospitality and she was snubbed. So the whole country was up in arms. There were bomb and death threats. Their hotel and security and roadie gigs were all pulled. And they basically had to, beat a retreat back to the airport carrying their own instruments, being harangued all the way by Filipinos. Justin Bieber, 2012, he sent out some Instagrams making fun of Manny Pacquiao being knocked out. He was declared persona non grata. He later did this tearful apology on TV and stuff, apologizing, but the damage was done. Terry Hatcher, 2007, on the premiere of Desperate Housewives, she commented that she kind of questioned the veracity of Filipino medical schools. Ermita, who was like the president's secretary or something, he personally got involved. He said it was a racial slur against the whole country. And the producers of the show later went on to had to retract and cut out that part of the premiere for syndication and rebroadcast. And finally, Dan Brown, Inferno, in his latest book, he described Manila as the gates of hell. Again, the Manila government, the city council there, got upset at that and said that he should have described it as the entry to heaven, and all kinds of retaliation blew up against him on social media. The last one is Jimmy Sykes, and his video was done in 2012. It was the 20 things he didn't like about the Philippines. Again, I think in this case, even a lot of stuff was true, but it wasn't so much what he said as the way he was saying it. He was using a lot of expletives. He was swearing a lot, and the Cebu Council later went on to declare him persona non grata. Defamation and slander laws. You can be civilly found liable for defaming somebody, for violating somebody else's Amor Propio and bringing on shame to them. Yeah. For saying something bad about them, even if it is 100% completely true. If it hurts the person, if it hurts the business, you can still be civilly held liable for that slander or defamation of character. So that's something to keep in mind. That's something that I have to keep in mind when I'm doing my videos. Again, my disclaimer, I don't know much about this at all. I'm just starting to figure it out. I'm starting to put the time and the effort into it, and I'm taking it seriously. I'm talking to expats, I'm talking to Filipinos, I'm doing a lot of research and stuff, and I'm looking back at my own personal experiences. I'm examining my own time here and seeing how this all factors in. So again, the recent examples of all the high-profile celebrities and stuff is just goes to show you how extreme this can get. I don't think the United States government would be declaring people persona non grata and kicking them out or anything if they were saying such things about the United States. But again, there's the sensitivity, there's that sense of amor propio, not just the love of personal self, but the love of the collective self, the Pinoy pride, trying to get that sense of self-identity and be proud of it. These are all things that you have to keep in mind, and I'm figuring this out. And I'm sure like a year from now, I'm going to look back at this video and say, oh man, what was I doing? Tomorrow what we'll do is we'll get further into Amor Propio. We'll look at what it is, how it's defined, who it affects, some of the negative consequences of it, some of the positive aspects of it, and what can happen when it gets violated. We're going to talk about sumpong, we're going to talk about tampo, which some of you might be familiar with. And we're going to talk about, that motorcycle coming up behind you with the two dudes mounting on it and getting two to the back of the head. And that can sometimes occur as well. So, on that happy note, I got to go check out the after-school program, maybe get some bonus video for that. This is Ned over at My Philippine Dreams, and we'll see you tomorrow with part 2 of Amor Propio and Hiya. Take care. I think Nano loves Michelle. She's over here by herself at Afterschool's after-school program. We picked up a whiteboard so she could do little stuff today. And Nano is working on her letters, her alphabet.
A, small letter A.
Good smile. There we go. Afterschool's after-school program. She's working on her letters. She's in kindergarten? Ah. Right. We'll let them get back to class. Life is good, man. Life is good. And Michelle made pork adobo.